loved it. So I was a big skier at the time. I spent a lot of time at the local ski mountain, and Montana's just got a lot going on, skiing, hiking, backpacking. I'm an outdoorsy type guy, so I applied, I was accepted, and I figured, I would just go and check it out. So I went out and had a great time, saw a lot of Montana, a little bit of Wyoming, a little bit of Utah, and just had a really good time. Did okay in class, I did just fine. I got decent grades, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I never had any clue what I was supposed to sit there for 4 years and then come out and jump into a job. I knew I was good with my hands, I was good with construction, what I was doing at the time, so it was hard for me to sit in class and focus. And we were supposed to pick a major, and I couldn't pick one. I was looking at, being a helicopter pilot to a construction manager for a big, highway company, and you were supposed to just pick what you wanted to be for the rest of your life, and I just couldn't do that.
Dude, we all have the best time ever to start a small business.
If I'm not gonna be 100% in, I'm not gonna do it.
Come on, man, just be yourself.
Yeah,
and just show up as yourself.
If you don't realize what I'm really about, I'm about freedom, family, and my country. Matt, cheers.
Cheers. Got my water.
Got your water. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, man, appreciate you having me.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how we met, and I do a lot on social media, but I'm not one to really just shoot a random DM. I like to build a relationship. A lot of times people don't realize how you build relationships, meeting at the coffee shop repetitively, the lunch place, or just at your kid's soccer game. You and I would become friends. But on social media, it's no different. It's just kind of over time you're liking somebody's stuff, and then eventually you shoot them a DM, hey, that was a cool video, and you kind of build rapport with them.
Sure.
But there was something, I don't know if you end up following me or I end up following you first, but there was something literally about your logo, which is great, the TRIAXLE logo, that just popped out at me. I just launched the sponsors. I saw that you had something to do with trucking. I had a bunch of trucking guys coming, some other trucking sponsors. I was like, dude, let's hop on a call.
Yeah.
So we did. Right away, I could tell you that you were a great dude, stand-up guy, and you were also willing to, be a sponsor for the event. Came out to the event, had a great time, met some people, and I was like, hey, let's get you on the podcast. So here we are. Trevor, why are you messing with the lights so much? What are you trying to do?
I apologize.
What are you trying to do?
Nothing. I hit him on accident.
So you are obviously here now. So
Sure.
we want to kind of talk about your story. We want to talk about TRIAXLE, you as a dad, husband, and talk about your life and the history of you in contracting business.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you inviting me out. And yeah, it was kind of, I don't know who followed who first, but I think I just saw, somehow it came across a reel of your podcast. And I saw, Fireside America, and I was like, hey, that's pretty cool. So I saw, I kind of caught up on not some of the episodes, but some of the stuff on your social. And you must have seen me liking some of the stuff or commenting on it, and then you sent me that message. So
yeah. It's weird how social media works. Sometimes it just clicks, and I think that with your business in particular, I don't think a lot of guys, and when I say your business, talking about, I call it the dirt world, right? So guys, working in the excavators, doing development work, site work, they don't do a ton with social media.
It's becoming a lot more popular now. I know a lot of guys, I know some guys that still have flip phones in the dirt business, primarily like the older crowd. And I know a lot of guys in the business that they don't care to bother with social media. They have a ton of work. They don't want to mess with it. They don't want the hassle of what some of the negatives that come across, with social media. But a lot of guys are utilizing it. They're putting content out there on Instagram, showing off. Guys like showing what they're doing, what they're building, what they're creating, what they were able to purchase with what they've been doing with their business. So I think it's becoming a lot more popular these days, especially with the younger crowd. I feel like a lot of the younger guys, they might not be, really have the years behind them in the construction field, but they're doing the content from day one. I think they see it working.
They get it. Yeah, listen, you have some cool trucks. You're doing a really cool job. You should be putting that out there.
Sure.
I want to get to your story, but first I want to kind of chronologically walk through your life. That's what I like to do, give people a backstory on who you are.
Okay.
So PA guy, born and raised, right? Where in PA were you?
Little town called Clark Summit. right outside of Scranton, PA.
Right outside of Summit. So you're still there now.
Yes.
So you never left your town you grew up in.
I did. So I went to Montana State for 1 year. I left and I went to school in Montana, decided college wasn't for me, came back to Pennsylvania, started working again, and that's where I'm at.
So growing up there, went through school, got to high school, finished that up. Were you ever in equipment? Was your dad in that space? Were you playing around in the construction trade?
My dad was not in it. The first year, but when I was 16, the first summer that I had my license, I went to work for a contractor. And I don't remember exactly how my interest came up or what happened. It might have even just been like, I needed money. I wanted a job. And
I'm broke.
Somebody told me that, hey, you know, I feel like maybe my mother's hairdresser, it was her husband or somebody that I worked for. So first year, I mean, out of sophomore year of high school, I think like within a couple days of the end of the school year, I was working for a contractor, and I started sweeping floors, pulling wires. I remember digging out a Bilco door with a pick and a shovel and thinking it was bullshit because I knew the guy had a backhoe, but he just had nothing else for me to do that day. So I dug the whole hole. That took me a day or two to dig it out.
He wanted to get his hours out of you.
Yeah. He wanted to make sure I was earning my keep. So it just started off when I was young. I worked in construction in the summers. I did it when I could, you know, weekends. There was one time I was asked to leave school for a small period of time, and I went and I just worked and bought myself a nice mountain bike.
Why were you asked to leave school? We can't just glaze over that topic. I like people who are asked to leave school.
So there was a raid in the school, or like a drug check, and they ended up finding stems and seeds in my Jeep. There's
Shame on you.
Nothing really of any substance, nothing illegal. The cops didn't like it.
Your friends left some seeds in your Jeep.
I don't know who did it. I don't know who. Somebody. The door was unlocked, so they just threw them in there.
It happens.
So I had.
How long did you have a mutual agreement to leave?
10-day suspension.
That's
but
it
was a good deal for me. So I went and worked, and I bought a kick-ass mountain bike with my 10 days off. So
that's awesome.
It worked out well.
Yeah, you wanted to go to work.
Yeah.
That was me, man. I never wanted to stay in school.
Yeah.
I wanted to just work.
I had a hard time at school. I mean, I got through it, but I excelled in the trade, in the shop classes. I spent as much time as I could down there.
You were interested in it?
Loved it. That's where my focus was. Masonry, metal shop, wood shop. That's where I spent most of my time. Whatever classes I could get down there, that's where I went, because that's where I was interested.
We need to do more of it.
Sure.
We really do. I mean, these superintendents, these people implementing the curriculum, they could say whatever they want to say. It's dying. I mean,
it is.
AI is coming. There's a lot of other things that are going to transform, and people are failing. And I'm a big believer that 50% of colleges over the next 20 years will be out of business. And people will look to alternative strategies. Hopefully more vocational schools step up, because we need plumbers.
Sure.
We need electricians. My brother-in-law owns Belmar Plumbing a few towns over, and like he just keeps buying new $100,000 trucks like every other day. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, I spend a lot of money in scale. Like, you're just throwing. He's like, dude, I have so much service work. Like, why not just keep adding people?
Sure.
Because there's no one really to compete with them. And just think about that. Like, you don't have to go to college for these great paying jobs. You can go run some heavy equipment. You know, we don't have to go through your financials, but if you had what Matt had in the bank, some of you young guys or girls watching, you know, you'd be happy with that. And I think that our country needs to get back to some of those basic foundations, that blocking and tackling that built the strength of this country. And the curriculum in schools are not pointing people in that direction.
No, not at all. There's a big push coming for the trades. It's happening right now. I'm working, and I know some guys that are in the, you know, they're making a big push to bring the focus back to the trades. There's I don't know the numbers offhand, but the exodus, the people retiring in the construction world and in the dirt world in the next 10 years is staggering. We're going to be even more shorthanded than we already are.
We're jumping around a lot. Like, I know that obviously inflation, you talked about offloading some of your equipment during, you know, a high time when that stuff was priced favorable to you.
Sure.
But like, what is going on with the price of this equipment and stuff? Like, that's the other side of it, is like, how do you expect anybody to get into this trade unless they have someone who's rolling in with $10 million that they're going to bankroll them and take a shot on a young guy. Like, and I know the rental businesses, and I'm not an expert in this field, but I know the rental businesses in the heavy equipment space are growing, but even that's extremely expensive.
Sure. It's getting tough. I mean, machines, it's the regulation, the emissions regulations that they're putting on them. That has a lot to do with it.
Like the DEF and shit?
The DEF, the compliance to get up to the tiers.
Can you explain DEF? Because I think it's fucking dumb. Matt's truck almost died on us and down the road because it had no DEF gas in it or something.
I was just talking about this on my first podcast that I did last weekend. DEF is, I don't know what it is, but it's not good. You're not supposed to touch it. It's very harmful to your skin, to the paint on your vehicle. And what it does is it gets injected into the exhaust as it's exiting the motor and treats it to clean it. So you're cleaning exhaust with shit that you're not supposed to touch.
So we can't touch it. It's tearing the paint off your car.
Yeah.
It will literally eat through your skin and take your soul, but it's great for the environment.
But it's good because the government says so.
Almost as good as vaccines.
That's right. That's right.
Especially the COVID one.
So, yeah, I mean, the compliance is really up in the prices. A couple years ago, you could buy a TRIAXLE dump truck for $160 to $180, depending on how you wanted it spec'd. I have not bought one in 2 years, but I'm hearing now you're talking $250, $260, $270. So just like that,
and then
the price has gone up,
prices.
and the fuel has been out of hand. But that $250,000 truck gets the same rate as that $100,000 truck from the guy that has had one for the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So everything's getting expensive, and it's getting harder for new guys to get into the business and get started, and even for guys that have been in the business trying to maintain equipment and upgrade.
Fireside's all about turning around and helping the next guy. You should start a movement in that space with your podcast. You're going to blow up. You're a good guy. You're a likable guy. Your brand is awesome, and it's going to fucking explode. And start this movement where these guys kind of start to almost like hold notes or do these young guy favors. Hey, I'm starting to get out the business. Old man, go retire and relax. You put in your time and almost lend the equipment, lease to buy, some type of structure. Sure. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
To help the next generation get this going. Who's going to come in? The Chinese and do it? Like, seriously.
Yeah.
Like,
that's an interesting concept.
You're just going to park the dump truck and let it fucking rot away?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. There might be some potential.
I challenge you old heads, you stubborn old fucks. Matt's not staying, it's Ryan Robbins. Like, turn around to the next generation and help those guys get involved. Don't sit there and go, oh, I got my $300,000 beautiful red tandem dump truck. Like, turn around and pass that $100,000 oldie to the young guy so he can get started. Think about abundance. Don't think about, I want to squash this guy, because you're going to squash your industry. And someone's going to come in there that we don't want in there.
Sure, 100%.
And we need, as all business owners, we need to turn around and help people.
Sure. We have to reinvest in ourselves, in the community, and in the country, or we're going to be in big trouble.
And it can start right at your community.
Yep.
So anyway, high school, you don't love it. You do okay. You're doing some contracting work.
Through.
How'd you end up out in Montana State?
A buddy of mine, he had a friend or knew people that had gone out there, and they just loved it. So I was a big skier at the time. I spent a lot of time at the local ski mountain, and Montana's just got a lot going on: skiing, hiking, backpacking. I'm an outdoorsy type guy, so I applied. I was accepted, and I figured, I would just go and check it out. So I went out and had a great time. Saw a lot of Montana, a little bit of Wyoming, a little bit of Utah, and just had a really good time. Did okay in class. I did just fine. I got decent grades, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I never had any clue what I was supposed to sit there for 4 years and then come out and jump into a job. I knew I was good with my hands. I was good with construction, what I was doing at the time. So it was hard for me to sit in class and focus. And we were supposed to pick a major, and I couldn't pick one. I was looking at being a helicopter pilot to a construction manager for a big, highway company, and you were supposed to just pick what you wanted to be for the rest of your life, and I just couldn't do that.
Yeah, it's so weird.
I ended up leaving after my freshman year. I wanted to stay there for the summer, but I couldn't find a job. There was nowhere to work in town, in a college town where all the kids stayed. So I ended up coming home, back to work, and before the next year started, I just, it's not for me. I'm not going back.
Yeah, it's beautiful out there, by the way.
It's
Like,
amazing
if you've
country.
never been to Montana and Utah, I've never been to Utah prior to Keaton's event in January, February, whenever that was. And, like, man, was that gorgeous out there, especially with all the snow they got this year.
Oh, it's amazing country.
Like, we were up
It's
in the
awesome.
state park, riding snowmobiles, everything about it. Besides the food sucks. I don't know how Keaton got that big. Maybe he's just eating cheese doodles. But it is beautiful out there. And we got to this one part of the mountain where we were all the way on top, and to the right was Wyoming, to the left was Idaho, and it was just absolutely gorgeous out there.
It is amazing country. It really is. I love it out there.
So you come back, you come into PA, which is also beautiful. That's here on the East Coast. The topography is different. Our mountains aren't as high, but it's definitely a beautiful country. Like, I was down in the Pine Barrens today where we're doing the men's retreat, and that's unique land, man. That's 1 million acres of Pine Barrens. That's a lot of woods.
I drove through it today. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's just like thick trees after thick trees after thick trees. So you come back to where you obviously grew up and what you loved. What were you doing that next year not going to college?
I was just working. So I was working with a buddy doing construction. We were doing mainly roofing, siding, carpentry, decks, addition type work. And we were supposed to go and be partners, and then we ended up splitting up before that happened. He told me he didn't want to do it, so we kind of just went our separate ways. And I was working construction, but I wasn't working for myself. And when we parted ways, I just got into my own thing.
How old were you?
19 at the
19.
time.
And what were you construction, contracting, that's so general. What were you doing? What was
Mainly
your-
roofing. We were
Roofing.
we were doing a lot of work for a roofing contractor when it was him and I working together. And then when we split up, I basically just started working for myself for that same roofing contractor. So I started off as a roofer, doing some nasty shit in Scranton, and 3 stories high, 10 feet in between the houses. Really tough, brutal work. And that's how I started out. And
where did you go from there?
I think we went from roofing to light carpentry stuff. Build a deck, do a small addition, a small garage, and we just kind of kept working our way up from there. Eventually, need to dig a footing for a garage, so I would rent the machine and dig it for myself instead of hiring out an excavator. And then one thing leads to another, and we buy our own machine, and then we start doing that work for other people.
So that's how you kind of morphed into the site work.
Stepping stones. Everything just kind of kept going.
Did you ever think, giving a nugget to the young viewer, do you ever think maybe you should have just delegated and hired the excavator or hired the dozer and just stay in your lane? Or do you feel that led you down the path to where you are today? And
I did that in the beginning. I definitely did that. I didn't have the experience, the knowledge, the equipment, so I would hire people. And then I think it was not wanting to rely on them or be let down. If they don't, if the excavator doesn't show up and he's 4 days late, well, then your mason's pissed off because he couldn't start when you told him he had to, and then the snowball effect. So I think it was a lot of wanting to control the jobs ourselves and do them in our time frame. Plus, I'm a bit aggressive. I always wanted to do more. I wanted to expand. I wanted to add on more services, and why just do X if you can do X, Y, and Z, and take that income as well. So I think in a lot of ways it worked out very well for me. When I sold everything off last year, we had a very diverse operation. But at times the diversity was awesome. It was great. It kept us rolling, always kept us busy. But at other times it became tough to manage and staff in certain areas. So there's pros and cons to it for sure.
yeah, I mean, I look at it as different levers.
Sure.
So if maybe building a home was slow at that time, but site work for whatever reason in the commercial space was hot, you pull that lever, right? I
100%.
believe in buckets of money.
Sure.
As things change, each bucket of money has different ways it earns a rate of return, different ways it's taxed or accessible. So, you pull that lever when the things change and shift.
Sure.
And that's what diversity helps you. But it does become difficult when outside factors you can't see come into play,
Sure.
like a pandemic.
Pandemic, yep. Or you get too busy with everything, you know. If one thing was designed to help carry you through the slow times in the first operation, and then they're both busy, well, then you're hiring people. And then, you know, the cycle just kind of snowballs. But there's a lot of factors you can't control.
So you end up then getting a plant where you were crushing concrete.
Crushing rock.
Crushing rock.
Yep.
And you were doing site work still, bought yourself a couple nice pieces of property. So you go and you're doing the construction and then the development, excavating work, the dirt work, I call it, for another 10 years. At one point, did you start to say, hey, I don't know if I want to be in this forever, and what's something else that I could do?
I never didn't want to be in it. It's kind of just a series of events that got me out of it. So the idea for the app, TRIAXLE, came up in 2010. I saw a need back then. We needed a better way to network clean fill locally in Northeast PA. So that's how the idea started.
Explain that for people who don't know what the hell clean fill means.
So clean fill is material, dirt, anything that you excavate from one site and you can't redistribute or level off on that site. You have to move it out and haul it to another location and get rid of it, because you simply can't store it on that site. There's no room. Mm-hmm. You can't, if you're on a residential lot and you excavate for a basement, there's simply, in a lot of cases, there's nowhere for you to grade that material off and spread it out on site. So you have to haul it out and find a dump site for it. So in Northeast PA, dump sites are, you know, people that are looking to expand parking lots. A farmer out in the country that, you know, just wants to level an area off the side of the road. They come in all shapes, sizes, different forms. So my initial idea was to network people locally, because every time you move even 10 miles away, trucking that material is costly. So if you have to haul that material 15 miles to the only site that you know about, it can be expensive, and it's a lot more expensive than if you knew about one that was 3 miles in the other direction that you never heard about. It could save you a ton of time.
So I got to stop you for a second.
Sure.
So you're not talking about like going to a plant that's a designated area for dumping fill, and I know that there's some of those. You're talking about the random farmer Joe who wants to make sure that his road is not sinking in because he had some river run through it, or Johnny with the farm that wants to build up, you know, a parking lot area for his pole barn.
Sure, for commercial properties, you know.
So random people that need fill at random times.
Correct, yes.
So like...
Yes. In certain parts of the country and the world, there's designated sites where you take it to. You pay to drop it off. They spread it out, they hold it, and then if a big project in the area comes up and they need a bunch of it, well, then they pull it back out and they redistribute it. But in Northeast PA, a lot of it is simply just taking it to a location that could use it, that would want it, wants a bigger parking lot, wants to flatten out their yard.
So they need to know
who has it.
Yeah, who has it and who needs it.
It's networking. It's needs and haves. Somebody needs it, somebody has it. How do you bring them together? So that was the initial idea, and I never did anything with it for a long time. I just sat on it. I'm not a tech guy. I figured somebody else would come up with it at some point. And as time went on and it became more frustrating, it never happened. I really started thinking like, all right, if this isn't out there and it's not available, then maybe I can do it. So it was a very slow process to get it off the ground and convince myself that I could actually do it. And then, you know, the app evolved from clean fill to we network anything and everything in the construction industry on the app.
Listen, when there's a problem and you have a solution,
sure, you
know, that's something you can monetize.
Absolutely. Yep.
So talk a little bit more about the other features that the app has. Obviously, you know, someone out in Eastern PA looking for fill, he can get on there and say, hey guys, I'm looking for fill. Bloop, it goes out to a bunch of dirt movers. They know they could take it there. Talk about you doing maybe an out-of-state job, working with some other contractors. You're needing to connect with somebody you don't know in the area.
Sure. The nice thing about the app is we're kind of doing the work of Google, Yellow Pages, Facebook, word of mouth. So if you're a contractor, you know, a lot of guys, there's a lot of big firms, they'll come from Colorado to Northeast PA to build a CVS. They do a lot of work for these chains and they follow them around the country. So you can go into our app before you leave your office in Colorado and you can find your concrete subcontractor, your site work guy, your trucking company, your quarry, your asphalt plant. And a lot of parts of the country, that's not all available yet because we're just starting to build the network. We just launched this January 4th, but the vision and the dream is anything and everything in the business that you need or have can be networked on the app. And we also have a pretty cool and very easy and powerful construction calculator for doing concrete takeoffs, asphalt estimates, cubic yardage, square footage, and we have a project management tool called Job Sites where you can actually create a job site for a specific project and bring your team members into that and communicate with them. You can put in pictures of the project, PDFs and blueprints, anything related to that job. You put in the documents section and everything is stored under that particular job. So you don't have to go searching your group text messages for communication from 4 weeks ago or finding a picture of a pipe that you buried that you have to get to. You just go into that job and boom, it's all right there. So, we're building a network, but we're also incorporating tools into it.
And those are the years of experience that are in your head of these problems you ran into.
Sure.
And said, hey, this would be really cool. I'm actually looking to build an app out for the Pit 2.0.
Awesome.
And it's crazy. You got like a menu list, you know, like you go to a restaurant and it's like, hey, you want steak, you want liver, you want this, that.
Sure.
It's the same thing with an app. I want to dive a little bit deeper into your app and kind of the technology behind it. I know you're not a tech guy, but I'm sure you've learned a lot. You're smart. I want to talk about that because I'm interested because I'm looking to build this app.
I've been learning.
Taking a quick break in the podcast, I want to talk about the Pit 2.0. What is the Pit 2.0? It's made up of a huge network of people across all different industries that are solving problems, creating solutions, and also bringing together a lot of marketing and sales idea. If you want to get into a Pit group like this, it's very inexpensive, $147 a month. If you want to learn more about it, check out the links and the information below. I want to dive into the app a little bit and then dive into like how you're marketing this besides social media and really how we get your word out. Because as I learn more, I'm a guy that I think is pretty smart. It makes a ton of sense. Talk about building the app. And again, I don't need you to go talk technical terms or start talking code because you're going to lose me anyway and probably lose most of the viewers.
I won't even get there.
Yeah. So when you first set out on building this app, what was your vision of it in its entirety? I know you talked about some of the tools and some of that prior to going to break, but your overall vision for it.
The overall vision was a lot smaller than what it is now. So my initial idea was a local network in Northeast PA, start out as a website as a means to network clean fill. And then eventually that grew into nationwide networking clean fill. And then when my brother Doug, who was my partner, came on, he brought an outside perspective that I didn't have. I had tunnel vision. I was in the business. I knew,
Why, what does Doug do? Why isn't he here?
So he lives in Alaska. So
we're going to see Doug.
We'll go out and hang out with him in Alaska.
Yeah, we
you
need
think
to go
Montana's great? Alaska is a beautiful country. It's amazing out there.
So what was Doug doing?
So he works for a flight medic company. So he moved out to Alaska. He was a paramedic flying patients on the planes, and now he's in the offices running the day-to-days with some bases. I don't know his exact title, but he's like a director of operations out there.
He needs to hook up with our buddy who runs these fat tire trucks for the oil companies into rural areas they can't get to for medevacs.
That's a lot of what they do. That's what they do. They do, emergency stuff in the remote areas via plane and helicopter, but they also do a lot of transports. They'll take people from Anchorage down to Seattle for medical procedures and bring them back up. It's a pretty big company, pretty big operation.
That's crazy.
So he's got a lot of business sense
Logistics.
and logistics and management skills. I had a construction related business with under 20 employees, and he's doing a whole different thing. So he got involved, and he kind of opened up my eyes and made me think about it more, and we worked through it together and realized like it's a lot more than what I had initially envisioned. It's a lot more than just fill. It's anything and everything in the industry you can network. You're already building an app. You're building a map-based network. Why stop at the clean fill side? There was so much more to it, and that's how we ended up getting to where we did. Was me and him teaming up my industry knowledge with his outside perspective, and him pulling information out of me and saying, well, what about this? What about that? And eventually it turned into a very broad structure.
As people talk on my podcast, I get ideas, so my ADD jumps around. But there's a gentleman, I won't say his name, him and his brother work for defense contractors. And essentially, let's just say if they were going to kill a high-value target in my home, they would fly like Cessna planes above my house. And I do see him sometimes, and sometimes I think, like, is it his brother? And they build maps. So let's just say they were coming in on Black Hawks, and SEAL Team 6 was going to jump out. And God forbid they can't take off in the helicopters. They needed their own mapping system of how you get out of there and another exit strategy. It's very high tech. Like, that is a good dude, I think, for you to hook up with.
All right, sure.
Yeah, and I will make that connection tomorrow. Please remind me.
That'd be great.
Just thinking about mapping. And is geofencing in your app?
Not yet.
Not
Not
yet.
yet. But we have different ideas in a roadmap, so that may get incorporated at some point.
Yeah, I think that's super powerful.
Sure, 100%.
So you then say, I have this plant, I'm crushing rock, I got a construction company, I'm moving dirt, right? Matt Vincent says we got to move dirt every day, whether you're the spoon or you got the backhoe.
Yep.
When was the switch to say, I'm going and building this app with this vision I have?
So I really started digging into it probably around like 2018. I decided I wanted to do it around 2015. Said, all right, I'm going to do it. Drag my feet. Just kind of took forever to get the wheels in motion. 2018, 2019, really started brainstorming with my local website guy. And I was going to do it just as a side gig.
That wood you got
get
is
it.
nice.
It's
Dude.
nice shit, isn't it?
That's good shit.
That's good stuff. So it was always initially it was just going to be something I was going to do locally. So I wasn't giving up my other businesses. 2021, we started off the season, and it just became the most hectic season I ever had. I had a couple good guys that were supposed to be running operations for me. They left last minute, like right when the season started. And I had spent that whole winter planning to really be more of like the operations manager. I've been working on site, in equipment, on the paver, in trucks my entire career. I always ran my business from a cell phone while being one of the guys on the site.
Don't most contractors really?
They do, and it's the way it gets done a lot.
Phone's just going all day long.
Yep. But I was at the point with all of our different operations. We were crushing rocks, screening topsoil, selling landscape supplies, paving, doing excavation work, and building docks. I got to the point where I really should have been managing all of those businesses. And I realized that. I just had a hard time letting go. And I finally...
Because you enjoyed the work.
I did like the work. And I liked making sure it all got done to my standards in the way I wanted it to get done. And
Nugget. This is a nugget on the back of Matt's, it was a little bit of a learning lesson.
Sure.
Right? It was a learning curve that we all need to do, and I run into them all the time. But in business, a lot of times, all different types of industries, we want things to be to our standards, but no one's ever going to treat our business the way that we will.
Nope.
Ever.
Nope.
And if you want to scale, you want to grow a sales team, you want to hire employees, you're never going to be or have people who treat it the same way that you will. And if you don't delegate and elevate, you're going to end up in a situation where you're working too much in the business and not on it. And that was something that you ran into.
Sure, that's what I was doing 100%. And I finally got over that. I finally talked myself into letting go. I had very high quality standards. We have a phenomenal reputation in town that our work was always great. It was always what we said it would be. And I never wanted that to drop off. So I stayed in it. But I finally talked myself into managing the business. And that was the plan. And I spent my entire winter of, I guess it would have been 2020 going into 21, planning for that and structuring my bidding process to streamline it. I was going to start selling more work, really start building it up. And right in the beginning of the season, things kind of fell apart. One of my good guys that was going to run the paving operation left last minute. He was the guy.
Oh, you were doing paving too?
We were doing paving and excavating, yeah. So he left and left us shorthanded on the crew.
That's a tough business.
Yeah.
Did you talk to Trevor? He was in the paving biz.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No, I knew he was hauling.
His old guy is rocking out here in Jersey.
All right, cool.
You need to connect with him too.
Yeah. So when he left, we were shorthanded. I didn't have anybody qualified to complete the work that we had lined up, and I had to do it. So my plan of, being the boss and running around and managing all the operations before the season even started, it went to shit. And I had to put the work boots back on, jump on the paver, help the crew, get the jobs done. And then I had another guy quit right after that and went and worked for the first guy that left. So that was interesting. So that year just became extremely hectic.
Let's talk about that real quick. A good leader wants to train up somebody below him to take over his job.
Sure.
That's what great leaders say. But a lot of times, especially in the contracting business, because I have a lot of blue-collar workers.
Train your competition.
Yeah, you're training your competition, man. Like, that's such a hard thing. And I think most of us need to understand, if you can find a loyal dog, and I mean that by no, demeaning way.
Sure.
But if you can find somebody who's going to stay with you through the thick and thin, even if they're slightly less talented, they're going to take a little bit longer to train up. That person will stay loyal to you. I think more of us need to start to look to that, because you want people to go out. You didn't want to stop that guy if you wanted to own a business.
I want everybody to be successful and do what they feel they need to do for themselves.
You work your tail off. You have him on your equipment, and he's beating it down.
Sure.
You're paying him a payroll. You're putting him health insurance. You're taking care of his family. And boom, now the guy's out, and he's your main competition and stole 4 of your customers that you just were working with.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, that specific scenario didn't exactly happen, but
I'm talking in general.
Oh, sure, but it happens all the time. I mean, a lot of the guys that you talk to in the construction business, they're like, I'm sick of hiring my future competition. That's what I've done for 40 years. Is you get these guys to where they know something, and then they're not making what they want to be making, and then they go, and next thing you know, 2 years later, you're bidding against them.
How do you think you keep them there? If you were to give any young guy that was in your position 5 years ago, how do you keep that person?
Well, I mean, obviously it comes down to how you treat them, how you treat them and how you compensate them, Maybe I didn't treat them the best. Maybe I tried to be good at it. I tried to be, a good boss.
Fair.
Sometimes I became we became friends with a lot of the people that you're working with, and then you have that line there between boss and friendship, which gets a little sticky too. So
they know personal stuff.
It comes down to how you treat them and compensation. We're in a residential, mainly a residential gig, and there's certain rates that you can pay your guys to be profitable in what you do. So it comes down to that, and if they can find another opportunity for a little bit more, they'll jump on it.
Yeah, it is what it is.
You can't pay somebody what you want to pay them. You have to pay them what you can afford to pay them. Mm-hmm. And, do you know exactly what that exact number is? Well, obviously you want it to be, in your favor, so, you can put some money in the bank and keep them rolling, but they want to get as much as they can. So it's a tough thing. But, I think how you treat people will ultimately help retain, talent and people more than maybe that extra buck or two an hour. They want to work somewhere where they enjoy going to work, and somebody that they enjoy working for.
Flexible
and I feel
hours, dropping the kids off at school as they show up a little bit later.
I feel like I had guys in the past that, appreciated what I did and liked working for me, and other guys that we just didn't work for them. They didn't, they didn't, so.
Yeah, I could totally understand it. I'm looking right now as I grow this enterprise. I call it a Fireside, Ryan. I could go crush in the vertical of financial services, and it's kind of dumb of me not to, because I'm very good at it and I can grow that out with my branding and marketing, but I'm not going to create good culture, because I'm just not somebody to manage somebody else that's not working.
Right.
I could coach you all day long. Right? You're coming in as a coaching client, or Trevor's coming in as a coaching client, or whoever it may be. I'm very good at that, because you're not directly affecting my pocket.
Sure.
But I'm the type of person that I'm a little bit OCD with how you operate. Again, going back to, no one's going to do the same work that you do, then I need to be removed from it. I need to not see it.
Right.
And that's kind of a tough phase that I'm going through right now. Who runs that for me? How do I do that? Do I trust the person running it?
Sure.
It's these are the things that you run into in business. I took us off track. So you start to say, damn, I'm wearing so many hats. I got a paving, I got a landscape yard, excavating, construction.
Yep.
And then boom, COVID.
boom, COVID, and actually COVID, when COVID first hit, we were putting up our new building at the time, spending a ton of money to put up, our dream shop, 3-bay shop warehouse with a retail space, offices. Steel building, yep. And
who built it?
We did. We were a dealer for them. We put it up ourselves. We did it in between jobs.
You want to build mine?
I'm out of the business. Can't help you. Sorry.
Just like that.
Just like that. Just like that. So 2020, I thought I was going to lose it all. It was all gloom and doom, and everything was going to shit, and the world was going to end. And we ended up having the busiest year ever. We did great, 2018, 19, 20. They were some really good years for us. Everything was going well. And then 2021, it just shifted. The guy that left started his own business, saw how busy everybody was, thought he could do it himself, is doing it himself. Then other people left, and it just got to be a lot. So I was looking ahead at the app, and I really have a vision for this, and I think it can do something really great, nationwide and then eventually worldwide. So I'm looking at what I have in front of me with the app, and then I'm looking at all the hecticness and the chaos, and the stress. I had 2021.
2 kids at home, beautiful wife.
Never been more stressed in my life. I had never been more stressed. I was working my ass off. I felt like I was just spinning my wheels. I was running a paver. Going to the office at 5:30 in the morning. Working, trying to catch up on some paperwork, then running out with the crew, paving, then going back to the office, then trying to get home and see my kids before they go to bed and get some rest, go to sleep and get up and do it all over again. 6 days a week. It was burning me out. And
it will.
When it was good, it was good. But when it started unwinding, it unraveled, and it was a lot. It was very hectic. So the app in front of me, all these other things, really pulling at me and taking a lot. And that was when I realized in the fall of 2020, I said, you know what? Paving and excavating, we're done. We're not doing it anymore, because that was where I had to be a lot. We just didn't have the right staff going forward, and I didn't want to go out and hire a bunch of guys, knowing that my vision was the app, and not knowing that, I'm very honest with people, and if I don't think I can give you a good future and I have something sustainable for you, I'm not going to pull you in just for a short-term 6 months.
Because you got hungry eyes looking at you.
Yeah.
They're looking for the upward mobility.
So knowing that the TRIAXLE was coming around, I didn't feel like I should be going out and trying to build back up what we had going on and then maintain it. So paving and excavating in the fall of 21, I decided, for the next year, we wouldn't do it anymore. That would free me up, and that would give me more time. And then as time went on last spring, I decided, our crushing operation, very demanding, very high overhead. We were actually doing pretty good. We started making some money at it. And it was just a lot. So I just slowly kind of started, working some of these operations out, selling equipment. The market was hot. Good time to get out. So I saw that too. Need capital to fund the app. So that's kind of how I started going that route and deciding, now if I was ever going to do it, now is the time to cash out, put the money in the bank, and have some working capital for the app so we can fund that. Give myself a paycheck, for a while we work on this, and not have to go out and rely on VC money.
I got to stop you. So I always talk about the end goal. So Ryan's end goal is based on what myself, Kelly, my wife, and we desire as a couple for my family. If I can help people in the meantime and make money, that's a win-win.
Sure.
But that isn't just in the financial services lane. I've shown over 3 years, I'm like a Swiss Army knife or a monkey wrench. I could be multifaceted. I could do many different things.
Sure.
So I'll never give up my financial services business, because I promised a lot of my clients that I have that I would be here with them until they retire, and I will be. But sometimes we have to hit that switchback on the mountain to get to the top, and then the next switchback, and then the next switchback.
Sure.
You aren't done with your goals. What you want and you desire with your beautiful family is still out there. You just were done with that season of your life. And a lot of times we have to know, when you talk about knowing that equipment was hot and you weren't fully in it in your heart and soul,
Sure.
you got to know when it's time to adapt. And if you don't adapt, you're going to die.
Sure.
Talk about, the heartstrings that are pulled on there, the back and forth in your mind, right? Because you loved it. You can still see that you loved the work.
Yeah.
And you're still in the work, just from a different capacity.
Sure.
Talk about that struggle mentally.
Well, it was tough. I mean, I started off in construction at 16. By 19, unofficially, like, you know, not legally, at 19, I was running my own business. It was another, what's that?
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Yeah. You know, it was my life. It was a lifestyle. It wasn't a job. It was my life. And I finally got, my plan was to invest heavily until I was 40. And I was getting there. I was going to invest heavily until I was 40. I was buying land, buying equipment, just
you were doing it.
Constantly reinvesting. I wasn't taking much. I never had a Corvette. I wasn't like out buying, all these elaborate toys and lake houses. I was reinvesting in my business. And my plan was working, and then plans, things just kind of went in different directions.
Then Fauci got on the fucking pulpit.
Yeah, and you had to pivot, and it was tough because I spent so long. I finally got to the point where I wanted to be. After all these years, I was like, man, we're doing it. We're here. This is all the grind, like all the blood, sweat, and tears, the 7 days a week working, missing vacations, missing family stuff, not going out with my friends, not going out to golf outings. It was finally all paying off, and then life had other plans, and it went different ways. So it was tough to let go, but also to realize everything I've ever done has been a stepping stone to something else. I started off as a roofer. That gave me the knowledge and the motivation and the funding to invest in more tools to start doing carpentry work. And then that allowed us to purchase our own skid steer to do, our own retaining wall and excavation work. And then that led to people hiring us to do it for them. So everything kind of snowballed, and it was all a stepping stone and just building and reinvesting. And then to very quickly over the course of a year, turn around and kind of offload a lot of that and sell it. It was tough, but I know it's the right thing. I feel like what I've learned with my diverse operation over 20 years has helped me design an app that only somebody with my experience, my background could do. Tech guys in Silicon Valley cannot build TRIAXLE. They can build what they think we want, but they can't build what a contractor would actually want.
And you were at the event. Someone said in their speech, life happens for you, not to you.
Sure.
So what was happening for you has led you to this next season of your life, which you're going to absolutely crush. I love everything about it. I don't see a way that it doesn't work. So jumping into the app, because I was asking you a bunch of different questions, what's it like building an app? Because I want to do it now for the coaching group, and it's not an inexpensive ticket.
Sure.
It's also another risk. So you're kind of going to start to, you're able to offload some assets and you have some property. So you're not going to not pay the bills, but still it's a fairly large investment for something that is a slow build. You're giving that app away for free right now.
Yep.
So talk about all that.
It's a frustrating process for anybody that is not very technically, knowledgeable and savvy like myself. I'm a construction guy. I crushed rocks, screened dirt, sold materials. It was a whole nother ball game for me. I don't understand what these guys are talking about when they're quoting me and they're going to do
code this, code that.
It's just not my thing. Anything that I had done in the past, I knew what I was talking about. I knew what I was doing, and if I didn't know it, I had somebody that I could trust, that I could rely on, say, hey, how can I solve this problem on this site? What would you do? But in this game, I was totally blind. My brother, he's very smart when it comes to technology, and he's the computer guy in the family, so he knows a lot more than I do. But still, it was a leap of faith and relying on the company that we went with to do what they said they were going to do and give us the product. So it's a leap of faith to work with this company to do that, but also it's a huge leap of faith to know, that my vision is going to work and pay off. I just sold off all of my income, all my tools that made me a living for all these years. I sold them off, and I'm all in on this app, and it's definitely it's a big pivot, but I can feel it and I know it's going to work.
All in.
All in.
I hear it. And every successful guy in my coaching group, every guy that I pay for coaching, every business mentor I've ever had, it's all in, and it starts with your vision.
Sure.
And you have to be a driver with that, and you have to believe in it, and then you have to get others to believe in that vision. And you not only were believing it, you were now talking to these tech gurus, saying, "Hey, man, I gotta put some dirt from here to over there," and they're going like, "Huh?" Talk a little bit more about that process with the tech building guys.
Trying to get my vision across to them, it can be tough. It can be roadblocks. They're hyper-focused on what they do, and they don't know my world, and I don't know their world. So trying to come to that happy medium. Meet in the middle. It's tough. And the company that we went with, they ended up getting it done, and they delivered an awesome product, but we were butting heads for a while there in the middle, and towards the end, the product wasn't what we felt they quoted us, and
wasn't your vision.
It wasn't my vision, and we ended up agreeing that I was right, and that they weren't producing what we wanted, so they ended up coming through, and they got it done, and I give them credit
That's
for
admirable.
that. Yeah, they did it, and they came
Listen,
through.
we're not perfect. All business owners fuck up.
Oh yeah, but they followed through, so that meant a lot, and that that says a lot about them as a company and the people. They followed through and they got it done.
Talk to a Mike Bocchino I know, or a Dan Rack I know, and they're moving fill and they're playing with heavy equipment. Talk to that guy right now, or girl, that's running that type of a operation. What your app actually does. Kind of break it down in a couple different areas.
Well, what it does, ultimately it brings transparency and visibility to your world, to what you're doing, to the materials you're moving. So, for example, Clean Fill now is just one part of what the app does, but it was the original idea. So the ways of moving that in the past, you got to call a buddy, you got to go on Facebook and make a post, you've got to just drive. Literally, I used to drive around town. If I was going to a town 10, 15 minutes away.
You were looking for a sign out front of the farm.
I was looking for a friggin' sign. I was driving around towns at night.
I see those still. They need to get on TRIAXLE.
I should be home, hanging out with my kids, having dinner. I'm driving around because the next day we got to dump, 20 loads of dirt, and I got to know where I'm taking it. And sometimes that drive produced a site, and other times it didn't. So what we're doing now is, no more driving around, no more making posts on Facebook. You simply go on TRIAXLE, you search Clean Fill, and every post related to Clean Fill in your area pops up right then and there. Now, are you seeking them out, or are they coming and seeking you out because you're marketing to their area? Well, we're marketing to, we're marketing. We're taking our marketing slow for now. We're building up our social, and we're also, our app is V1. It's beta. We're still working out bugs. We're still testing it. So we don't, as much as we would love to have 1 million users on today, I don't want 1 million users on today. Yeah. I want to build slowly over this year and get the bugs worked out. And then once we know we have it dialed in, then we're really going to crush the marketing and send it out further than what we're doing. But it brings visibility. So Clean Fill is just one thing. You're going to a new town, you don't know what's, the resources over there. You can find your porta potty company on there. Find the local concrete company, the asphalt plant, the quarry. Find a company that you can rent flagging, safety people. Anything and everything in the business is now being put on TRIAXLE. And we have a lot of work to do. We're just starting to build the network.
Kind of like that one-stop shop.
It's one-stop shop.
Now, let's just say you're in New Jersey, you want to get on there and you're a flagging company, right? They can reach out to you for free, and essentially you'll put that business right now.
They don't even have to reach out. You don't have to call us. You just go to your app store. You just go into your app store, Google Play and on iOS, and you just search TRIAXLE, you download it, in 5 minutes you have yourself a profile and you're up and running, and you can see what everybody else is doing. We're trying to make it as simple and as easy and as painful as possible.
You're talking to contractors.
We're talking to contractors. They don't want to deal with a bunch of shit. Even me, I don't want to sit at a computer and fumble around. A lot of people are like, "Who the hell are you building an app?" Like, you're not even that technically savvy.
I'm going to do a whole bit on, you should have a vision and then hire people to execute.
Yeah.
A lot of times we want to try to figure it out ourselves.
Sure. I knew I was never going to build an app. I hired people to do it, but I had the vision. So the goal is just to streamline it, simplify it, get done with your day quicker, get home to your families. It doesn't have to be so hard. Technology is powerful, and it's out there now, and we're.
How did Uber start? Someone needed a ride, someone wanted to drive.
Sure.
Someone needs fill, someone wants to dump fill.
Yep.
Someone needs a contractor in the area to help them out because they're not from the area. Someone else is hiring. So, I mean, to me, it makes all the sense in the world. And then you're adding all of these great tools inside of it that are very complex and not inexpensive to build.
Yeah, so we're adding project management tools where you can very simply and very easily create a job site and communicate with your employees, your vendors, your subcontractors in that specific job site. You can upload all your project photos, blueprints, PDFs into it. So, every job that you have can have a specific tag, and you keep all of that documentation under there. So, I can't tell you how many times I need to go back and find a specific photo for a pipe that we buried and had to relocate, 6 months ago. So I'm scrolling through my phone looking for that job, then to find that picture. It's annoying now with TRIAXLE. You just simply, you create the job site. Every photo that you want to put into that is there, and it's categorized.
It's almost like a Slack, right?
It is it's similar to Slack. We use Slack to communicate with our team, and it is similar to that, yeah. And it's just simple and easy. We don't, it's an app, and a lot of guys in construction aren't ready to adapt technology. But
they'll be forced to.
They're going to have to if they're going to want to keep up, because their competitors downloading it and they're using it. They're going to have to. But we tried to make it as user-friendly as possible, and I think we did a good job with that.
Will you always keep it free to download a profile and add yourself to it?
That's the vision for now. Yeah, the goal is to keep the network free, and you pay us for the tools if you find them useful. And with the network, that gives us advertising power, with some of the big players in the game that would like to advertise on it and are not already, pursuing us for that. So the goal is, or the plan is for now, network free, come on in, communicate, collaborate, and then we'll charge a subscription for some of the tools, and we'll make some money off the advertising that we put in.
So you talked about family. This is allowing you, especially since offloading all that stress and all those different divisions, not that you're not hustling. You have launched a podcast. What's your podcast called, by the way?
Right now it's the TRIAXLE Podcast, but we're holding the contest for somebody to name it something more unique than the TRIAXLE Podcast. So see what you can come up with.
Move dirt.
Yeah. A lot of them, a lot of them are taken. I did a lot of searches when I was coming up with some names, and surprisingly, a lot of them are taken. They're not even necessarily in my exact field. But yeah, so if you come up with something,
I'm gonna come up with something. I'm usually pretty creative that way.
But it's giving me freedom. Is what it's doing.
I saw your son on your Instagram. He was down in the woods. You got a pretty good amount of acreage at your personal residence, and he was moving around a mini excavator. I'm sure you kept some fun tools for yourself.
Yeah, we kept a couple of things. You have to.
And that's joy, man. I think the goal for everybody who hops into business ownership, entrepreneurship, is to get to a certain goal. Don't get me wrong. People want to have nice cars and Lambos and do all that stuff, and that's cool, if that's what drives you and that's what brings joy to you. A lot of different love languages.
Sure.
But for me, it's just creating that time and memory, and there's always a balance of all right, I could keep acquiring companies, I could keep going bigger, deeper, but, at the end of the day, someone like yourself, myself, you want to spend more time with your family, and the move that you made has allowed that. So whether you know it or not, you already had a huge win.
Sure, 100%.
Your son's 9 years old, and what's your other?
My daughter Emma is 7.
7.
Yeah.
So
this is a great time in their lives, and like you said, what did you say? Life is happening to you or for you? So
not to you.
That hectic year that I was having, looking back, it was happening for me.
Yeah.
It as crazy as everything got, it forced me to make a decision, and it made me decide, all right, you've got to give this up to go with the TRIAXLE vision.
Tough
you
situations
can't do
always
it
come
anymore.
from ahead.
But if I didn't have that push, and I didn't, maybe if I didn't have that hectic year, I would have tried to do TRIAXLE and my other operations, and then they all would have fallen apart because I would have been spread way
shot.
too thin. So it happened for me, forced me to make the decision. I did. And now I'm still hustling, still working, but not nearly as crazy as it was. Some days I'm sitting at my desk going, what should I do now?
Yeah.
I never had that luxury, but now, I can take off with the kids and we can go camping an extra day and I don't have to worry about it. I can work from my phone. I can pretty much work from a laptop or an iPad and my phone almost anywhere now. So now that gives me the freedom. I love seeing the country. I traveled the country a lot when I was younger, and now I can do that again. And
With your kids and with your wife.
With my kids, yeah, with the family. So it's all about freedom and making sacrifices to gain freedom elsewhere. And I'm looking forward to it. It's a whole new chapter. It's a pivot from what I've done for all these years, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can do with it. And we have big plans. We think it's going to really do great things, and the freedom that comes along with it is phenomenal.
Yeah, freedom is options. I've always thought about freedom as freedom. What does that mean to you? Everybody can go down the list of what America was built on. Rob Bailey put it into better context for me over the last couple months. He was like, freedom is options.
Yep.
Something a mentor of him taught: options to go camping with the kids, options to not go to work today or not.
Sure.
We're only here for one life. Unless you believe you're reincarnated to a dog or a donkey or something else.
I'm going to make the most of this one. So
Yeah,
I don't know about that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know about that stuff either, man. So I'm gonna go all in and try to create the best life that I can accomplish.
Sure.
And obtain. So kind of rolling this to an end, I like to ask two questions.
Okay.
First is, if you could tell any young entrepreneur, young Matt Williams, young Evan, Ryan, Trevor, any of these guys here, what's the one thing you would tell them when it comes to owning a business or being an entrepreneur?
Go with your gut. Go with your heart. Do what you think is right. Don't look at what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, block out the noise.
Block out the noise. Do what suits you, right or wrong. You got to do what you want to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of naysayers when you do things. When I launched this podcast, I had a lot of naysayers. You had a lot of naysayers. Matt, what the hell are you doing launching an app?
Sure.
And it will probably be a very successful app in your space. Second question, you're a PA guy. I'm obviously here in Jersey. The world is way more connected than it's ever been because of social media and digital infrastructure.
Yep.
So it could be out in your area. It could be guys you met at the event. But give, two shout outs to some people you want to give love to. Obviously, you talked about the company that built you the app, and give us a couple more.
Okay. I guess my brother, Doug, it's been phenomenal working with him on this app. We've always, for a long time, we weren't really close because he was doing his thing and I was doing mine. So I think it's been really awesome to be working with him again. We were pretty, although we were brothers and we battled a lot when we were younger, we were still pretty close, and then we kind of went our separate ways as we grew up and
Life
in
gets
high school.
busy.
Yeah, he came around. So shout out to him. It's been fun working with him. And then another one, there's a lot of good people in my life, man. I didn't do this without, I guess the other one would probably be my mother, Nancy. She's the one that pushed me when that guy bailed on our partnership. She's the one that pushed me that I could do it. And she's been around for a lot. She's actually my office manager for the past 12 years or so. She came to help me get my books straightened out one day and get me organized, and here we are 12 years later, and she's
Books
still
sucks,
here.
Don't they?
It's terrible. It's terrible.
That's
I'd be lost without her. She's
fractional CFOs is becoming a major thing for small businesses, and it's because forecasting, 12-week cash flows, like all those types of terminologies. You could be like, I'm a finance guy, and I'm a high-level positioning of money guy, not a forecasting of cash flow guy.
Sure.
And cash flow is everything. And when it comes to business, you gotta have somebody who's a good bookkeeper.
I didn't do the books very well. I never did. Actually, my buddy's father, Mike, he came over and helped me for many, many years. Helped me keep my books in order. Like, I knew what my bank balance was in my head, but my QuickBooks was negative $400,000.
Yeah, I know.
Because I just didn't touch it. I'm like, whatever. I don't need that. It's all up here, So I mean, a lot of great people in my life. I have not done this on my own, but you know, my mother definitely is one. She pushed me to get into business. She's always been there. You know, when things got a little rough. I mean, running a business can be hard. It gets hectic, and she was always there with her guidance and always kind of just like kicked me and said, "You can do it. You know, suck it up. You can do it." So
that's
so,
awesome.
So
Shout
she's
out
been
to Mom.
great. Yeah, for sure.
Well, listen, this has been awesome.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you having me.
I look to try to help you network more here locally with good people that I think could benefit from TRIAXLE, and you could benefit the relationship with them. And I really appreciate you being here, man. Cheers again.
I appreciate the invite.
Yes,
This was
thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed the podcast and you want to learn more about it, check out the links below.